Welcome back to Big Mouth, and I decided to do this pre-recorded video because I want to talk about the battle for the multiverse. Both the MCU and the DCEU are battling it out to see who can have the better multiverse strategy. Now, this is very interesting and very exciting to me. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. So, which studio, Marvel Studios or Warner Brothers, will win the battle for the multiverse strategy? Now, already I'm hearing people say, oh, the MCU and Kevin Feige are going to win this hands down. But people don't seem to understand that Walter Hamada and Greg Berlanti have been developing this multiverse really since 2018. It's been in the works for a long time. You see, the Snyder universe, the Snyderverse has delayed everything in terms of Snyder being driven out and then them not knowing whether they were going to release the Snyder Cut or not. It delayed everything. And kind of we had a Groundhog Day with the DCEU. We went from Justice League, we went to Aquaman, we went to Shazam. Then over on the Black Label with Todd Phillips, we went to Joker. And so it's been a very, very slow progression. Then, of course, we had two disappointments in Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman 1984. But they already knew they were going to reboot the universe, so they didn't really care about those movies. They're just filler movies, just to have something come out and bring in some bucks. They didn't bring great bucks, but they were there anyway. It was basically filling the gap movies. They always knew they were going to reboot the universe. Now, basically, Kevin Feige's Marvel Studios multiverse strategy, it's very important to understand this, is very different to what the multiverse strategy over at DC is, where Walter Hamada and Greg Berlanti are working on this. Now, obviously, Marvel Studios' strategy for the multiverse isn't rebooting anything. That's not what they're attempting to do. It's not a vital thing. What they're doing is they're changing everything. They're muddying the waters for the franchise and making things a little bit interesting. We're going to get the Secret Wars. This is what they're doing. We're going to get the Secret Wars Disney Plus show. Samuel L. Jackson will star. I think that Steve Rogers is going to be in it. I think Peggy Carter's going to be in it. And I think Loki will be the new leader of the TVA. So I think that's where they're going with that. So it's very exciting and interesting, and I think it will be great. And Spider-Man No Way Home, I'm excited about that film. But it's very different. They're not looking to reset the universe. They have no need to reset the universe. They're just going to, they're just going to bring some chaos. They're just going to do a Back to the Future 2 with the whole universe. And they won't always go down the multiverse angle in all their movies. There's certain elements that will, obviously. So it's very, very different. But obviously, even if DC were to do the best, most perfect multiverse strategy, people would still say that Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios did the better job. This is the toxic environment we live in. Whatever Warner Brothers and the DCEU do is simply not good enough. Now, someone said on TikTok today that they should have united Arrowverse and the DCEU many years ago. And I think there's some sanity to that madness, actually, because I think in the first two seasons of Arrow and The Flash, the ratings were insane for the CW. They'd never scored such good ratings and sponsorships since Smallville. And Smallville was one show, don't forget. Greg Berlanti created a whole franchise, which a lot of people love, by the way. It's not everyone's cup of tea before someone comments and says that. But, there are people who stand that universe. So it's been a success story to a point. So I think that would have been a good thing. Listen, Zack Snyder made 3 very interesting type of indie superhero movies, especially with BVS, and Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut, but he should never have been put in charge of the entire universe. I think he should have been allowed to finish his vision. That's what he should have been allowed to do. Then he was going to enact his Flashpoint, and someone else could have come in. Exactly what they do in the comic books, right? But they didn't allow that to happen because this is a business. I look at both sides of things. This is a business. They weren't bringing in the money. The media hated it. A lot of fans hated it. And they just weren't doing what they needed to do. And it was just hurting their platform. Not just the DCEU, but Warner Brothers as a whole. They panicked and they decided to cut the apron strings, to cut the umbilical cord and say, sorry, Zach, you've got to go. We can't wait for you to finish this. This is a fucking disaster. Suicide Squad is a disaster. We pushed you out. Justice League is a disaster. And then for some reason, AT&T decided to greenlit the Snyder Cut, which I was very happy about. It's a great movie. It may be one of the best comic book movies I've ever seen. Again, so unique, so indie. Superman screams at the beginning. People hearing it, the whole universe hearing those screams is such a great take. He probably got it more right in the Snyder Cut than he did in his other films in terms of attracting a broader audience. I think the numbers for that film are a lot better than Warner Brothers are trying to suggest. There's something nefarious going on there, but you understand there's a civil war going on between those two entities, Zack Snyder and the studio. That should never have happened, but it did. They simply can't work together and there's a lot of reasons for that. I don't think that Zack Snyder and Ray Fisher conducted themselves in the right way, and it was chaos in the end. And, they're moving away. So this multiverse strategy has been in the process since 2018. So that's 2021. That's 3 years. So for some time, maybe even back before that, because Walter Hamada was only over there at New Line Cinema, a company owned by Warner Brothers, doing this amazing horror movies, The Conjuring, things like that. Very successful. He absolutely knows how to run a franchise. He doesn't really have much DC knowledge, but with Jim Lee around and other people around, that's not really a problem. And it doesn't seem to be a problem with Aquaman or Shazam. So that tells you something, that the man can produce these movies. Now, of course, the movie that ties everything together is the Flash movie. Now, everyone's saying, oh, well, Kevin Feige's going to get to the multiverse before the DCEU. And of course, he's right, because we're getting Spider-Man No Way Home. But it's not about who gets there first. It's who does it the best. Spider-Man No Way Home could be an absolute darling for the critics and the fans, but also there's a lot of fans who hate the idea. And this could end up being a fucking clusterfuck. It's unlikely. So it's all about, execution. So if this works, the usual people are going to say, you see, DC, you didn't get there first. Marvel did. They're better than you. You failed. But of course, the DCEU's, the DC live-action universe's multiverse strategy can't be a failure until we've seen how they've executed it. There's a good chance that Henry Cavill's Superman will already be in James Gunn's Suicide Squad. There's a good chance of that, and he could cameo in every single one of those movies, of one DCEU movie. I hope so. That excites me, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. But the movie that has to work, seeing them moving away from the Snyderverse, is Flashpoint. When you're rebooting a universe via a movie instead of starting from scratch, then that film better work, brother, better work, sister, or you're in trouble. So this is a huge deal. They've cast Sasha Calle as Supergirl. She's going to be there. Keaton's Batman, maybe Nicolas Cage's Superman. There's so many elements to this. And it has to work. If that film fails, Walter Hamada will be gone. And when David Zaslav and Discovery come in, something radical will be needed. What that is, I don't know. So who do I think will do a better job on the multiverse? Again, think about it. What Feige's doing with his multiverse isn't the same as what Walter Hamada and I forgot his name, Greg Berlanti. That's it, Greg Berlanti are doing. It's something different. That's world changing. What DC are doing is world changing. But uniting Arrowverse and uniting the DCEU and uniting Brandon Routh's Superman universe, aka the Christopher Reeve universe, Michael Keaton's universe, a brand new Earth for Matt Reeves as well. It's very ambitious. It's more ambitious than what the MCU are doing, but the MCU don't need to change the direction of where the ship's going, because the ship's going in a place everybody enjoys. Now, how long people will keep on enjoying the MCU if it's just ticking along and not doing what it did in phases 1, 2, and 3, where people were well excited and happy for it. It may be that no one will beat the stats of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's very possible that if DC get this multiverse strategy right and it sticks, then we've got something very big here as DC fans. We've never had a certain slate before. We've got a bunch of movies now. It's so exciting. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, Matt Reeves' The Batman, Black Adam, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, the Flashpoint movie. We've got what else we got? We've got Blue Beetle. We've got Green Lantern Corps. You know, we haven't had a live-action Green Lantern universe since obviously the ill-fated Ryan Reynolds movie. So we've got that, and there's apparently a Green Lantern Corps movie in development as well. And what the multiverse strategy basically does, it makes everything canon. And that's really ambitious, but it's also exciting from my point of view. I believe it's realistic, and this is my bias talking, of course, that the DC's multiverse strategy could be more successful than Marvel, because if what Hamada and Berlanti are doing actually works, it could be more exciting than what we're seeing over here. Because as I say, this multiverse strategy that Feige's doing isn't really about world building, but what Hamada and Berlanti are doing is absolute world building. And as I say, this is something that's been in the planning for many years. But it's not important what I think, it's important what you think, of course. What do you think? Who's going to win the battle for the multiverse? On this corner, on the left corner, is Kevin Feige's Marvel Cinematic Universe, Marvel Studios, the MCU, who have been successful and have beaten the DCEU on every turn, you know, from the mainstream broader audience's point of view, not from my point of view, by the way. And in the right corner, it's Walter Hamada and DC Live Action. Could they possibly unite all these franchises together and make it a success? Because the more I think about it, the more it blows my mind. Because actually, this multiverse strategy started with Arrowverse's Crisis on Infinite Earths. Because what I will say is, right now, the Arrowverse characters think that the multiverse is that. But they're about to find out in the Flash movie that it's that. I think, and I'm not sure because I don't really watch Arrowverse anymore for many years, but I think that they think only one Earth survived Crisis. Obviously, Barry knows. Even Ezra Miller's The Flash knows now, since they met in Crisis. That was the moment that the multiverse strategy really began. And now all we have to do is enjoy this Suicide Squad, this James Gunn's The Suicide Squad movie. And then The Flash is the big moment. It's the final of these films, really, before Aquaman. Aquaman will be interesting, coming after, straight after Flashpoint. So, these are uncertain and exciting times. But what's not uncertain is that the DCEU have finally got a slate we can look forward to. And it's so exciting, and things are being announced all the time. We've got DC Fandom. The MCU and Feige didn't come up with a fandom. We did. Walter Hamada did. You know, the people over at Warner Brothers did. Say what you want about them, but fandom is a pioneering event. It destabilizes Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, and it gives DC fans their own con. That's fantastic. So comments down below. I want to know who you think's going to win the battle for the multiverse. Like, share, and subscribe. If you like what you've seen, subscribe. If you don't want to be part of an echo chamber, subscribe. If you want to hear balanced opinions, if you want to see someone who does live streams and has a bit of banter with his subscribers, subscribe. Follow me over on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And I'll see you tomorrow for the Big Mouth Daily live streaming early in the morning around 9 a.m. UK time. Check your local times. I'll see you then. Until then, goodbye and thank you very much.